Okay, everybody. So far in Chapter 3, we've talked about kind of how to do things with text files, meaning like we know how to look at them, we know how to look at the beginnings of them, we know how to look at the ends of them, we know how to look at them in backwards order, and one of the things we just talked about is kind of how to search text files for something. Well, one of the things that's going to be really important for Linux or any other operating system is we've got to be able to edit text files as well. And the book walks us through kind of four basic Linux text editors here. And so we're going to discuss all four of them. But the one that we're going to start talking about, because it's probably the most important, uh, is VI, and you can see that on the little commands we're learning about today page over there, and that's actually pronounced VI. People don't call it Vi. Well, some people do, but it's generally it's going to be pronounced VI. And VI is kind of the granddaddy of all Linux text editors, and one of the main reasons that you're going to want to use it is it's pretty much installed already on every Linux system that exists on the entire planet. And that might be an exaggeration, but it's not really much of an exaggeration because Linux is not actually as old as VI. VI has been around on some of the earlier Unix versions, and so it is everywhere. And probably at this point you're thinking, well, if it's everywhere and then I need to be able to learn it, is it at least easy to use? Well, I've got bad news. The learning curve on VI is a little steep, so until you get used to it, it's going to be something that you're going to think is kind of a pain. But after you get used to it, you can do a lot of changes really quickly. It's very powerful, but it's not necessarily easy to learn. I'm just going to go over some of the really basic stuff in VI here. There's a little bit more detail in your book, and then there's another video in the Blackboard resources that's from YouTube, and it's about 15 minutes, and it's just kind of higher level VI details. And if you are interested in this, then I would encourage you to take a look at that. But the main thing that you've got to do in order to get used to VI, and this is true for Linux in general, but it's particularly true of VI, is to practice. It's like learning a language. And if I just tell you about VI and you never actually use it, you're not really going to know it. Now, for the Linux Plus, you're going to have some questions about VI, and those are the questions that you'd kind of see that are going to be similar to the homework problems. You know, how do you do this? What's the command to do that? And it's important to be able to know those, but it's better if you have the time and the inclination to actually sit down and just practice with VI, and the more you use it, the more you'll actually just learn the commands from using them, not because you sat down and memorized a list. So that's kind of the VI spiel. I'm just going to go over the basics here. In fact, I've already spent the first 3 minutes of the video just telling you about what we're going to do. So let's move on. The most important thing that you have to understand about VI is anytime you use VI, you're in one of two modes. So VI has two modes. It has what's called insert mode and what's called command mode. Um, as a result of this, it gets referred to sometimes as a bimodal editor because there are two modes. And most of us have a concept of kind of what software does when we issue it commands. If you're in Microsoft Word, for example, and you hit Control C, you're not going to expect to see Microsoft Word put a C on the screen. You're going to actually expect it to interpret that as a command saying, I want you to copy this text. And it's same with Control V or Control Z or Control S. So in Microsoft Word, you have this idea that if I modify my key input using the Control key, um, then I can make it do some commands using the keys that I normally use. VI it's the same idea, but it implements it a little bit differently. And what I mean by that is either you're in command mode and you can just type letters and they do commands instead of actually displaying the letters on the screen, like you're inputting something, or you're in insert mode, which is when you type, say, an ASDF, it's going to actually put ASDF on the screen. It's like you've inserted that into the text file. And the most important thing you have to know when you're using VI is which mode you're in and how to get back and forth. Now, as a general rule, when we do stuff with text files in this class, I'm going to edit them using VI. And That's kind of just a choice I'm making right now. I'm used to VI, so I use it all the time, and I've now blabbed so long that the computer's gone to sleep. But it's also something that I want you guys to see, so you get used to it as well. But for some of the files that we edit, trying to learn VI and then do whatever we're doing in the lesson is not necessarily going to be a great thing. So if you want to use Nano or gedit, those are the generally the text files that are easier to use. You're welcome to do that. Emacs is complicated in its own different set of ways. We'll get to that one in a minute. Um, but what I want you guys to see is that any one of these text editors can do pretty much the same thing. So if I have to make a change to a file, I can use either VI or Nano or Emacs and gedit. And when I'm demonstrating stuff that involves text files later in the class, I don't want you guys to try to do what I'm doing in VI if you're not already familiar with it. So with all that sort of in place, let's go ahead and take a look at how we can actually use VI. So if you have a text file that you've copied from somewhere on your system. You can see I've got a yum.log here. You can use that with this file. I'm going to go into downloads where I still have these files that I have been playing with for a couple videos now. And the way I access a file with VI is I'm going to type VI, and then I'm going to give it the file name that I want to use. So if I want to edit the Gettysburg file, I'm going to type vi gettysburg.txt, and I can use tab completion for that. So in this directory, I'm going to type vi space g tab, and it's going to fill in the rest for me because that's the only G word there. So let's go ahead and hit enter. You can see that we're looking at the file. Now, um, when we open a file in VI, by default we are in command mode. Remember, we're either in command mode or insert mode. And if it doesn't say anything at the bottom, right now it just says gettysburg.txt, and it gives you the number of lines and the number of characters. Since it doesn't specify what mode we're in, we can assume that we're in command mode, which means if I type a letter, it's not going to put that letter into the text file. It's going to assume that that's a command. So the first command that I'm going to show you guys is J. And if I type J, you can see this actually moves my cursor down a line at a time. I can actually do the same thing with the arrow keys if I have arrow keys on my keyboard, but if I don't want to pick my fingers up off the keyboard, then I can use J. If I type K, I'm going back up. So J and K make me go up and down. L makes me go to the right here, and H makes me go to the left. Okay, so this is pretty much how I can get around in VI if I want to do something, if I want to go to a different line. Now, let's say that I'm editing President Lincoln's speech for him, and I want to put another sentence in here. Well, what I have to be able to do is my keys don't work if I want to type something into the document because I'm in command mode. So I have to go from command mode into insert mode. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to type a lowercase I. Everything that I'm going to be specifying is going to be lowercase unless I say that it's not. So you can see that when I type an I, VI has changed a little bit. I now have this thing at the bottom that says insert, and this tells me that I'm in insert mode. So if I want to go ahead and type stuff in, I can just type something like this, and when I type, the J and the K and the H and the L don't act as commands. They act like I'm just typing stuff in. If I type J J J J J J, then and with the expectation that I'm going down, it's not going to work because I'm in insert mode. And you can see that anytime I'm in insert mode, this thing right here is going to say insert. All right. So one of the ways you can go from command mode to insert mode is by typing an I, and that's what I did. If I want to go back from insert mode to command mode, I can use the escape key, and I just hit it, escape, and you can see that it's back to saying nothing at the bottom. So this means if it says nothing, I'm not in insert mode, I'm back in command mode. Now, there's a couple different ways you can get from from insert mode to command mode. So if I type a lowercase o, I'm in insert mode again, but you can see that VI opened up another line. So O, at least the way I want you to think of it, stands for open, meaning I want you to open up another line. And not only do I add a blank line, but now I'm in insert mode, right? If I want to hit escape again, I can go back to command mode. Now, if you're in insert mode, let me show you something else. If I type a lowercase a, it puts me in insert mode after, that's what the A stands for, the place that I am. So if I type, look, I'm typing on the M, and if I type I can do something like that, and it says test mode. If I'm back where I was, I'm going to hit escape, so I'm now back in command mode. And if I type an A and then hit test, now I'm typing in the middle of the word. So it says test ode, which is not particularly useful. So let's go ahead and hit escape again and get us back into command mode. Now, something that you probably noticed is if I'm in insert mode, or back in insert mode, and I type something, I can go ahead and actually just use my backspace key, and that works as I would expect it to. Okay, so watch escape, we're back in command mode. But if I want to delete something, I can go ahead and delete something while I'm still in command mode. So I'm going to hit H H H H H H H H, and I'm going to go ahead and if I type the X key, X X, it deletes the character that I'm on. Okay, if I type DW, it deletes that whole word that I was on. So watch this again. See, I'm on test, and if I type DW, it gets rid of that entire word. If I type DD, it deletes the entire line. So this is something that can be pretty powerful. If I type 2DD, it deletes 2 lines. Okay, so that's back where we were. So a lot of what is going to be sort of things that are helpful with VI and sort of how to get around it and how good you are at using it. If you can get familiar with what I've shown you just so far, that's probably about all that you need just to be able to do the basics. But there are all sorts of things you can do in VI. You can use it to find and replace things. You can change the settings to turn on line numbers. You can do all sorts of stuff. And there's some more details in the textbook. I don't want to give you guys just a 45-minute demonstration of just VI. But there's a lot of stuff here that makes it very powerful. Let me show you one more thing that you're going to need to be able to do, and that is if we've made changes to our file and we actually want to save those changes. So I need to be able to tell VI I'm done with what I'm doing and I want to quit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type a colon, and when I type a colon, you can see that it moves my cursor to the bottom, and I have a colon there, and it's sort of expecting a more complex command that's going to affect the entire document. If I type Q and then I just hit enter, this is going to quit. All right, so let's just demonstrate that. And it's going to tell me, hey, you're quitting, but you haven't made any changes. Are you sure you want to do that? Well, that's interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type Q, and if I want to tell it that I'm sure, I'm going to go ahead and put an exclamation point. Exclamation points in VI is your way of telling it, hey, no, I really want to do that. So let's go back in here. If I've made a change here and I want to save that change, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it W for write, and then W and then Q for quit. All right. So then if I go back into it, you can see that it has kept my change. It still says test 1, 2, 3, which is not really something that we actually wanted to see. So what I could do is if I hit DD and then DD again, we're now back to our original document. So if I go ahead and do something like this, W, and then hit enter, it saves those changes, but we're still in VI. It didn't quit. So if I'm going to go ahead and quit, I need to actually do a WQ. Actually, this time I don't even need to do a W because I haven't made any changes since I did my last write to it. So that's some of the other stuff with that in terms of getting out of a file and making sure that you save the changes that you want. That's one of the things that you can do in VI. There's some shortcuts to this. If you just type Shift ZZ, that's a way of saying save and quit as well. Um, there's a whole bunch of shortcuts that are in existence, but I want you guys to learn the basics first. So um, this is this VI is really important, and here's the reason why. A lot of what you're going to be doing if you're a Linux administrator is troubleshooting a system. And if you know a text editor that's already on the system, this means that you can get right down to trying to fix the computer, and a lot of times that involves modifying text files. If you are if you only know, say, Emacs or gedit, and the first thing you have to do is install one of those text editors, well, then you're in big trouble if the thing that doesn't work on the computer is installing software. So that's why it's a good idea to learn VI. What I would recommend that you do is open a file in VI, try the things that I've tried, step through the textbook because there's some additional options in there, or watch the other VI video. Meanwhile, we're going to go charging on to Nano, Emacs, and gedit.